Next up, let's talk about the mid lane. Mid lane is usually where mages go to thrive. This is because of the fact that they don't really need equipment in order to be very scary. With their skills, and generally most mages have pretty good mobility, they can actually move around the map and gank properly with the rest of their team. So do remember that mid laners do have a lane that they need to protect, which is the mid lane basically, so they also still need to clear the waves as per normal and try to push the tower as much as they can. However, they are also more responsible because of the fact that they need to gank in the early game with the tank or with the hyper, or even support the tank and hyper in trying to get their farm as fast as possible. There are no special EXP or gold for the mid laners because they don't really need those. So once you clear your waves, generally you always want to try to help your team try to take the objectives such as the Little Wanderer. If not, after that you can try to gank with the rest of your team. So a mage and a tank moving in tandem will actually help the team very much because they can actually try to secure kills for the side laners and even for the hyper. Remember to always let your tank be the one to initiate, and you as a mage, you should always try to be the damage dealer. In the early game, mages are also still quite painful because they don't really need items to be very deadly. Don't be afraid to use your skills and your spells so that you can gain an early advantage for your team, because that's basically the main idea of why you are chosen to gank in the early game. So for mages, there are actually many different types of mages that are quite easy to use. So here I'll recommend some that are useful for beginners. Eve is a very good hero to choose because of the fact that her skills are quite easy to understand. Basically, she has one burst and one little bar-like thing that you can use to slow the enemies and damage them. And you got one chessboard that you can play chess on. However, with these simple mechanics, Eve is very useful in zoning out enemies and to actually even deal burst damage to the enemies and kill them quite fast. Nana is the next mage on the list, and basically I think a lot of beginners will use Nana very well because she's free and she is very easy to use. Basically, you just throw a Molina out there and then try to use your boomerang and your ulti to try to kill enemies. These crowd control skills are very important in the current meta, and Nana can definitely be one of the best mages to use, and it's also so simple to use, so beginners will definitely like her very much. Next up is Luo. Basically, she is quite easy to understand. Her passive procs when you use her skills in different colors, and she's also quite mobile with her ultimate, so you can actually move around the map with her ultimate. Honestly, just build Luo with burst damage and you are able to dominate, especially in team fights where you can push all your enemies together and make them die together. Last but not least, I think is a crowd favorite, is basically Veil. Veil is a very easy to understand hero. His skills are knock up and he can deal massive damage with his ultimate and even his first skill. So he's very easy to use, and I mean, he looks cool, has great abs, so why not? So next up on the list is the role that many beginners forget. It's basically the tank or the support. Generally, this role is not preferred by beginners because of the fact that they get the least kills and the least assists, but they are also one of the most important roles in the entire team. Tanks are generally the people that actually initiate team fights. They enter the fights and soak up all the damage and the skills from the enemy team so that their own team can come in and deal damage and destroy the enemy team. Support heroes are generally the same, but they might be a bit more different in their utility. They are not there to soak up damage. They might be there, for example, to heal heroes or to stun heroes, for example. So what differentiates the tank and support from the other units within the game is basically they are the ones that buy the roam item. Buying the roaming item means you will no longer gain gold and EXP when you're farming minions or creeps with your teammates. Basically, all this gold and EXP will go to them. This is key when you're trying to help your hyper farm because all you want to do is basically help them gain as much gold and EXP as they can. Tanks don't really need the equipment in order to be very annoying. Basically, we just need our skills to try to be annoying. So tanks have two things that they can do in the early game. Basically, they can try to delay the enemy hyper in getting their farm, which is what I did with the Franco. Or I can try to help my teammates get their jungle creeps or their minions faster. Tanks and supports can also try to initiate objectives because they are the ones that can actually soak up the most damage. So being the ones to soak up the damage from the objectives such as the turtle or the lord is very important. And instead of just focusing on the objective, sometimes you will also need to provide vision. So basically you want to zone out the enemies by going to the grass and then providing an ambush or basically just a barrier around the objective that you're trying to secure. Here you can see that I actually provided vision with purple by placing his traps around, so that is one of the other things that a tank can do depending on the tank's skills. My dog also continues to soak up the damage from the turtle, and here you can see an enemy try to invade, and my job is basically to chase him away because I am tank. So tanks and supports are definitely the least favorite of beginners because they don't get kills and assists like I said just now. But here are some tanks and supports that might actually interest you if you're a beginner, and you can probably still get kills and assists because of the damage or the skills that these tanks actually provide. So I will recommend also both tanks and supports so that you can decide what kind of support you want to be within this game. First on the list is the king of beginner tanks, Tigreal. So all beginners will get Tigreal, and you'll probably learn to use him to a certain extent at one point or another. His skills are so simple to use. Basically, you just need to whack the floor, or you need to push someone, or you need to suck them all towards you so that your team can actually deal their skills on the entire enemy team. So Tigreal is basically a very easy to use tank, and that's why he's one of the beginner tanks, so you can definitely use him in the team if you want to. He's also currently in the meta because of the fact that his CC skills are quite strong, and he can also invade in the early game, which is quite a pain, especially if you're playing against other beginners. The next tank you can consider using is Hylos. Hylos is a very painful early game hero because he is able to deal so much damage with his second skill. His skills are also easy to understand. He has a stun, and his ultimate creates a pathway where his team can actually use to escape or to go towards enemies when they need to. Last but not least, in the tank genre, I would recommend Jawhead. Some of you might ask, why use Jawhead since he's not really a tank, he's more of a fighter? But actually Jawhead is a very good tank to use, especially if you build him with defense items. He can become quite sturdy and still deal enough damage. What's more, he's annoying as hell because he can throw you into the air, he can stun you with his ultimate, he can still deal massive amounts of damage with his first skill. For support heroes, instead of using tanks, you can use the Holy Quartet of Florin, Angela, Estes, or Rafaela. These four heroes basically support their team in terms of healing, as well as in other ways such as crowd control or in damage. Very easy to learn and very easy to use, so I would definitely recommend them if you're looking for a support that is not so initiative heavy. The last role that we have to talk about is definitely the jungle or the hyper role. This is usually the beginner's favorite role because they get to go into the jungle and they get the most kills and assists because they roam around the map trying to do that. But it's important to note that as a jungler, that is not your main objective. Your ganking and your killing is basically a way so that your team can actually push the towers much easier, and your role is to also gain objectives so that you can help your team advance as fast as possible. Early in the game, you should be focused on taking the various jungle monsters such as the buffs and the different jungle creeps. There is a certain way of moving around the jungle so that you can maximize your efficiency. Personally, I do this. This is just a hypothetical situation. Usually I start with the red buff before I take the Little Wanderer, before rotating down to take Ricky, and then going to the blue buff before taking the Skilled Lizard and the Crab. Usually once I do this, I'm level 3, and then I'll either go to the enemy's jungle and try to steal their little Kramer, or take my Kramer on my other side to try to get to level 4, depending on where the turtle is. But how you take the jungle really depends on you. You should always decide what is the most comfortable rotation for yourself and decide based on the objective's position. Remember that as the jungler, your job is basically to take objectives, so always try to take the objectives such as the turtle and the lord, because these are the best ways for your team to actually farm and get a goal lead over the entire enemy team. And always be the one to use your retribution so that you can try to secure the objective. Don't save your retribution for anything else such as buffs or anything. The reason why you are the jungler is because you have retribution, so use that to your advantage. I would also like to say, if you're not the jungler, don't take the creeps. So there are many heroes that are actually useful for jungling, but the best ones are usually quite difficult to use. Here are some easy ones that I would recommend for beginners. Barats is one of the most efficient junglers in the current meta, and he is very easy to use. His skills are easy to understand, and he's basically very tanky the moment once you get him big. Beginners that like to rush into team fights will actually find Barats a very useful hero because he can actually soak up all that damage and still deal out insane damage on his own. Once again, like X-Borg, in Epic and higher, Barats is usually banned at the moment. I would definitely recommend that you use him if you're in the lower ranks, of course. The next two heroes to use as jungler that I would recommend are Yi Sun Shin and Roger. I would say that these two are not the easiest heroes to use as hyper, but they are one of the best and their mechanics are not that difficult to understand. I think the key message that I can give about these two heroes is that they are not difficult to use, but they are difficult to use well. If you want to use them in rank, you probably have to train up with them a little bit more in Classic before trying to use them as the jungler so that you'll be more efficient when you're using them. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe and click the notification bell and join my Discord if you want to talk to other people about Mobile Legends.